Hi, and welcome to yet another episode of Deep Dive with Sangram. Today's episode is about this device, the mobile phone, which almost occupies a really central position in all our lives. But despite all the importance that we give to the mobile phone as a device, there has really been no major innovation in this device for the last so many years. So whether we get a promotion in our lives or not, in our jobs, our phones usually get an upgrade. And we wait for that time of the year, sometime in September, October, when the big launches of the phone companies happen. iPhone phone owners will definitely identify. We wait for the launch for earlier Steve Jobs and now, Tim Cook to come onto the stage to come and tell us about the latest features in the iPhone. And then we hear the familiar voice. Our best iPhone ever. Our best camera ever. Our fastest processor ever. And we aren't even listening. More than half the times, by the end of the presentation, we said, stop it with it already, take my money and give me the damn iPhone. And then we show off our iPhones like it was the holy grail. And well, when Apple makes its announcements, the Chinese folks are like, how could we be left behind? Well, and I promise this is my last meme, but take a look at this one.
3 कैमरे, 4 कैमरा 12 मेगापिक्सल का होगा, 40 मेगापिक्सल, एक कैमरा 40 मेगापिक्सल, तो 3 कैमरा होगा 120 मेगापिक्सल.
But what was said in this meme is largely true for a lot of phones. So here's the news, folks. This year, global smartphone shipments fell by 18.3% in the last quarter, a little over 300 million units, which translated to 11.3% decline in overall smartphone sales as compared to the previous year. Now, you may well say that, this was a year of depression. People are cutting down on spends. Earlier, we used to refresh our iPhones almost every year, and that rate of refresh has now slowed down to almost 2 years, 3 years. So in this race for device supremacy, are we seeing a Game of Thrones kind of a land grab, or should we say a throne grab? We are seeing reasonable signs that may actually portend the coming of devices that may ultimately dethrone the smartphones. Most of the content that we consume on our phones is multimedia, which means images and largely video. A good part of the tech world has been thinking that isn't it a little primitive to consume all of this multimedia content through the small little device which we have to hold in our hands constantly? The possible next successor to this video content could be immersive. No, I'm not saying the M word. I'm just saying a world of augmented and virtual reality. Mark Zuckerberg from Meta has bet his entire future on the metaverse, starting off with virtual reality, but looking at augmented reality to be the segue into the metaverse. Apple, meanwhile, does not like the word metaverse. So it is toying around with its own Appleverse. Apple has been experimenting with the entire AR ecosystem for quite a while. They've been loading their phones with AR technologies that is used to map the world and map all the objects around us. And meanwhile, closer home, back over here, Jio is running its own experiments. We've already seen a tease of Jio Glass. They've got their own ecosystem where they're experimenting with different content formats. Apple's tech has actually been seen in apps which we've already used. For example, IKEA, where we use AR technology to place IKEA furniture in different parts of our rooms, or for that matter, even the Pokemon Go app was built on an ecosystem of AR that's already present on our phones. We've already been experiencing some of these apps on our phones without even knowing that a lot of this is AR. I'm sure you've experienced Instagram filters or Snapchat filters where you see doggy ears coming out of our faces. AR can do a lot more. For instance, AR can not only track our faces, it can also track complex bodily gestures through a feature called body tracking. It can open up a portal in our environment. We can actually walk through it, through 3D worlds that we are creating. AR can also track monuments today. So imagine you're standing right outside Gateway of India and you're seeing an historical character stand on the top of Gateway. AR can specifically be triggered through geo filters. So imagine you're standing right outside McDonald's and a discount code is flashed to you in the sky, which is triggered just on that particular Bandra outlet. Isn't that amazing? And well, tech world is wondering that if we are creating so much of wonderful immersive content, isn't it a pity that we have to experience it only through the phone? And while we come back to this later, let's move to the next section and let's take a look at the creator ecosystem. And this extremely addictive world of content sitting in our phones is not thanks to the hardware. It is not even thanks to all the broadband and 5G connections that we talk about. That's again the medium. It's all thanks to the content. And who creates this content, if you may ask? It's the creators. We are seeing so much of video content because there are as many video creators existing in the system. Now, the video content ecosystem is already quite mature. But what the rest of the tech world is already planning is to invest billions and billions of dollars in creating an ecosystem where immersive content will be produced by creators. Meta's Immersive Learning Academy has already launched out programs for teaching Spark AR, which is their authoring software for creating augmented reality effects across the world. Now, this academy will create millions of creators whom they call creative technologists to actually author augmented reality effects. Meta's Immersive Learning Academy has already launched this curriculum in certain metaverse-ready markets like Korea, like Taiwan, like Indonesia and Japan. Closer home also, a lot of initiatives are being taken with respect to AR and education. There are initiatives which are planning to introduce AR as an elective in schools and colleges. A good part of our science textbooks and some of the concepts over there are being brought to life through AR. So imagine a small child in a school in Almoda who's studying biology, and now, thanks to AR, he can actually point the phone to a picture of the heart in his biology textbook, bring that heart to life, a 3D model. He can now zoom into it, rotate it, examine the heart in close-up, and not miss having a laboratory in his school where he has a 3D model of the heart. Closer home investments are being made by Snapchat, by TikTok, Apple, Google, Jio, who are making investments in their developer partnership networks through whom they want to increase the number of creators who will actually create immersive content for a world of tomorrow. What I mean by the app ecosystem is DIY apps which help make our content easier. Apps like Filmora, InShots, Videoleap, and so many others more. Now, the same DIY movement is also coming to help us create immersive content better. We've all been hearing about this buzzword AI, and the same AI which reportedly stole the thunder away from the metaverse is actually going to help the metaverse develop more immersive content even further. How? We've all heard about generative AI and the whole text-to dash movement, text to images, text to video. Now, the same text to will be replaced by text to immersive content. To add to it, the whole no-code movement is happening, whereby making any kind of immersive content without having to code is also going to come into our ecosystems very soon. In other words, making immersive content is also going to become simpler thanks to AI. The million-dollar question is, where will all this wonderful content sit? On our phones? Or will it be on some of these devices here? Let's go ahead and explore the journey further. So will the contenders to this be VR? Well, VR devices have always been around, right? Like the Oculus, like the HTC Vive, and so many others like this, including the PlayStation VR. But VR devices have always been known to play very, very specific roles. We've known them to be used for gaming, for industrial applications like machine maintenance and productivity. But because they're restricted to such specific applications, VR devices have never been known to be consumer grade particularly. History has shown that mass-scale adoption for any consumer device will happen only when the device is absolutely seamless and completely easy to use. Do you know when the first smartphone device actually came in the market? It was in 1994 from IBM. It had a very cute name. It was called Simon. It actually had a touchpad, sketchpad, email, and a calculator. It was cute to say, but that a device never made it into the mass market. After that, several iterations to the smartphone came. It was only when Steve Jobs stepped into the fray in 2007 and took a real shot at making the smartphone consumer-friendly and user-friendly that we got the smartphone that we all now use today. Similarly, all these blokes sitting over here will have to go through several iterations before they actually become consumer grade. Because one look at this device here and you'll realize that these devices do not have a pass-through, which means once you wear them, they exclude your real world out. They actually take you into another world. For starters, it may really look funny. But jokes apart, because of this aspect of exclusion and not having a pass-through, VR devices have always had a very, very limited application window. So VR is defined as the computer-generated simulation of a three-dimensional image or environment that can be interacted with in a seemingly real or physical way by a person using special electronic equipment such as a helmet, with a screen inside or gloves fitted with sensors. So now you know why these complex devices will never be a potential threat to the smartphone. Augmented reality is a technology that superimposes a computer-generated image on a user's view of the real world, thus providing a composite view. So basically, augmented reality requires a complete pass-through, and which is where this device evolved to something like this. The MetaQuestPro allowed for a color pass-through, which means from being a pure play VR device, this one is now a mixed reality device, which allows both augmented reality as well as virtual reality. Are we expecting that someone's going to wear glasses like this and walk around with it every day? And the answer really is no. So the question is, what is it that actually makes this device so heavy and so complex? Well, there's a lot of complex tech inside these devices. For starters, there are almost 12 lenses in this. There are 3 lenses on the front of the actual device. These 3 lenses situated over here allow for a full color pass-through, which basically means that you're not actually seeing it through a transparent glass. You're seeing the external world through these front cameras. In addition to that, there are cameras on the inside as well. These cameras on the inside are actually meant to record your facial expressions. Now you would say, why do you need to record my facial expressions in the first place? Well, for productivity apps, which is Meta's version of Zoom, which is Horizon's, you actually interact with each other through your 3D avatars. Now to make your 3D avatars look more realistic, these internal cameras record your facial expressions and then translate them into the expressions of your avatars. Well, if you ask me, that's stretching it a bit too far. Now let's go on to something else. This one does not need to be tethered to a phone. It's a standalone device, which means it has a 256 gig hard drive, almost a 12 GB RAM, and a very powerful processor. The processor inside this is possibly faster than the one sitting inside your smartphone. So we've concluded that we are not likely to actually wear a device like this and strut around with it every single day. But to be fair, when Meta made this, it was not meant to be a replacement for the smartphone. It was meant to be a productivity device which had a lot of use cases in augmented and virtual reality, and if at all, if it were to replace anything, the direction was to potentially replace your computer and not your phone. It was clearly a professional grade device. Even the pricing of $1,500 more or less points to that direction. So if this is not going to be a competition to your smartphone, what else could be? Apparently, Apple is launching its own device. It's called the RealityPro and is all set to launch on June 5th at the Apple Developer Conference. Now let's see if this device has any chance in the device's Game of Thrones or not. So this one's based on leaked reports, particularly from Bloomberg. And now let's take a look at what this purported device actually looks like. Well, one look at this and it does not really seem to be that slick, wearable, daily glass that we all thought it would be. It actually looks much closer to the MetaQuestPro, which possibly means that it has all the complex components that a MetaQuestPro also has. So the rumored specs talk of the M2 chip, a 16GB RAM and a hard drive. It also talks of a lot of cameras, some on the inside and some on the front. The front cameras, much like the MetaQuestPro, are meant for a colored pass-through, which means again, you will not see the world through your naked eyes and a glass, but rather through cameras. Why? As in the MetaQuestPro, so that it allows 3D mapping and you're able to run AR apps seamlessly. So then it does seem like the Apple RealityPro is a lot like or very similar to the MetaQuestPro. It's an Apple device. It'll seamlessly connect to the entire Apple ecosystem. So in terms of its OS, the OS is going to be called the XR OS and is rumored to be similar to the iOS on your iPad. You will see lots of cameras, especially the internal ones. Now, the internal cameras are again meant for the FaceTime application of the headset. Now, earlier in the MetaQuestPro also, we saw that the internal cameras were meant to record our facial expression so that our avatars could mimic them, but Apple promises that our avatars will not look cartoony but would look almost real-like, similar to our real-life avatars. Apple will also borrow a lot of hardware from some of the other Apple devices, like the digital crown here. Now, what is the use of the digital crown in a headset, you may say? Well, The guess is that it will be used to switch between AR and VR. Now that, I think, friends, is pretty cool. Apple is also expected to completely exploit the immersive capabilities of the RealityPro for a lot of its app ecosystem. Expect some mind-blowing meditation apps to take the meditation experience to a completely different level. What about Apple TV? Expect Apple TV or immersive video to also make an entry into this ecosystem. So maybe a special episode of Ted Lasso or maybe of Tehran where you can walk through the sets and actually experience what the set actually looks like. Immersive sports could completely be a game changer on the RealityPro. Similarly, arcade or the gaming ecosystem of Apple is also something that could find leverage through the RealityPro. And lastly, expect some applications on the productivity side. But in addition to that, you could actually mirror your Macintosh screen into the RealityPro and get a widescreen experience for all your work. That was a feature that was also there in the MetaQuestPro. So in short, it steers towards more the professional side than like a consumer use case. For starters, the price. Take a wild guess at what the RealityPro is expected to be priced at. Well, it's $3,000, which is almost twice the original price of the MetaQuestPro and thrice the discounted price of the MetaQuestPro. Hint number 2, it is being launched in the Developers Conference, which means it is largely meant to showcase this device for developers so that they can start developing apps for a future device which could be consumer grade. Hint number 3, Apple is planning to ship only 1 million of these devices. You may say, only 1 million? Well, compare that to the number of iPhones that Apple ships, 200 million. Even the MetaQuestPro, in comparison, shipped 20 million devices. So if Apple is actually planning to launch this at the Developers Conference, pricing it at $3,000 and planning to ship only 1 million devices, it effectively means that it is clearly geared to be a professional device. In many ways, it takes me back to 1983 when Apple launched their first computer, the Lisa. The Lisa was a professional computer aimed at professional audiences, loaded with features, very expensive, very bulky and chunky. Obviously, the device didn't work. And a year later, Apple relaunched it in the market, stripping away all the features, making it more consumer grade, making it cheaper, and that device was called the Macintosh, which was launched in 1984. The device that clearly changed the fortunes for Apple. Now, what is really surprising is that the RealityPro does not feature so many AR features despite all the background that I built initially saying that Apple has really been preparing for an AR device. But well, all leaks do not point to any major path-breaking AR applications to be a part of the RealityPro. So clearly no competition to you, buddy, at least on the Apple RealityPro. But what if your device did not look like any of these bulky dudes but was something as light as this, which could be worn quite easily. I can easily walk around with this all day and not feel the weight. So what is this, if you may ask? Now these are some of the AR glasses that are already launched in the market. This one is called the nreal Air. There's a similar device called the nreal Lite, which is also a full-fledged AR device. There's another device from Jio, which is called the Jio Glass, which is in its testing, and there are similar other devices from Oppo and many other Chinese players as well. All of these AR glasses have got fairly common features. All of them are fairly lightweight, they're easy to wear. The optical quality is not that great, but they still offer you a big screen to watch your content. The screen size will range anywhere between 50 inches to almost 210 inches, which means all your private consumption of videos can be had on the glasses itself. They are fairly easy to wear. They look a little clunky, sometimes a little weird as well. And they are all tethered to your phone, which means there's a wire that goes from behind the glasses and which connects into your phone. So in other words, it actually uses the hard drive and the processing power of your phone. That's actually the secret why they managed to make it so light. All of them are affordable. The Jio glasses, for instance, are slated to cost anywhere between 15 to 25,000. The benchmark competition also would not be too far away from this range that I stated now. Some of these devices are already launched and a few others are on their way. But would they replace smartphones? You must have noticed me mention that a lot of these smart glasses are connected to your phones through a wire, which means they're not replacing the phone, but they're augmenting the phone experience. So they too are not a competition to the smartphone in the device war. So what are we left with? Honestly, 4 to 5 years of further development. Meta has already announced its full-fledged consumer-grade AR glasses to come only by 2027. Apple meanwhile has also teased that RealityPro is not the Apple Glass. Apple Glass is actually the full-fledged AR glass which may potentially replace our smartphone. But these devices are clearly 4 to 5 years away. They would possibly be as light as some of the smart glasses we have today, but will incorporate all the technological feats that are already packed in devices like the RealityPro or the MetaQuestPro. So while the rest of the ecosystem is getting ready, in other words, we are getting more and more immersive content getting fed through our phones, when the creators are getting created, when the apps are being produced by the developers, the devices also have their own share of evolution to go through. So we will wait with bated breath for June 5th for Apple to launch the RealityPro. We'll see what are the features being packed in that device, and then we shall revisit this blog every year to see what's the progress being made in that journey to find a suitable successor to the smartphone. Wow, that was a fairly long podcast. But this is also a take not just me, but a lot of reviewers and podcasters are having about how the device evolution is going to pan out. But this is a topic where I would really love to know your views in terms of whether you would appreciate or you would like or you see your smartphone being replaced by any of these wearables that I featured today. Because it's important to know how consumer attitudes are also shaping towards technology. So do post your comments in the comment section below. If you did like, press the like button and share. And of course, if you haven't yet subscribed, do not forget to subscribe to this channel for further updates. That's it from my side, folks. Thank you and see you in my next episode.